Hi everybody, this is David, and I'm broadcasting right now from the northwest corner of the present Old City of Jerusalem. I chose this spot specifically because we're actually more or less in an area where we can kind of see the Hasmonean wall, which dates back to the 1st century. And so I thought, I'm here, might as well go out and enjoy the nice weather and record a Minor Prophets video, even though unfortunately this doesn't date back to the time we're dealing with. Something pretty to look at. So let's talk about Obadiah. I chose to start off with Obadiah because of its size. It's a really tiny book. It's one chapter. It's all one message, so it's not a very complex passage that we're dealing with. But Obadiah was probably written, and you'll deal with this in your readings, when exactly is Obadiah writing, but it was probably written after the Babylonian conquest of Judah in 605 BC. And it's a reaction to that destruction, but it's not written against the Babylonians. It's written against Judah's brother nation, Edom. Now, if you remember from Genesis, Edom is the descendant nation of Esau, which is the brother of Jacob that represents Israel. So you've got Israel and what's left of it, which is Judah at this point, and Edom, two rival nations that are actually go back to being brothers. And what's happened is when the Babylonians came to destroy or conquer Judah, Obadiah says that the Edomites somehow participated in that conquest. Now, he's not really clear as exactly what they did, and you could understand it as, the Edomites didn't come to the rescue of Judah, but Obadiah seems to hint that the Edomites actually participated actively in the conquest. So maybe the Edom was actually a mercenary type of soldiers for the Babylonians. That's possible. But in any case, in some way, Edom participated in the destruction of Judah by Babylon. And now Obadiah is responding. He responds with this very short prophecy against Edom, where he basically says, you're about to be completely destroyed. Now, one of the more powerful lines comes in verse 3, where he says, those of you who are so arrogant and hide in the clefts of the rocks, you live in the clefts of the rock, you think nobody's going to bring you down, you will be destroyed. Now, what Obadiah is saying there when he says, those of you who live in the clefts of the rocks, Edom had a very strong capital in Basra, and they had other mountainous fortresses, and I'll show you images, make images available in the supplemental reading. But there are these fortresses that are basically on cliffs, surrounded by cliffs on three sides, and a smaller cliff on the fourth side, and basically a natural towering fortress. And so the Edomites in these very secure locations like Basra and Petra and other locations in the Negev south of the Dead Sea, they thought they were impenetrable. And so Obadiah is looking at them and saying, you know what, you think you're impenetrable, you think you've got these, nobody can touch you because you're in these fortresses, mountainous fortresses. Well, guess what? You're going to be completely destroyed. And you think you can rebuild? You're not going to. And I'll actually show you pictures from modern-day Basra. Nothing's left of that location. To this day, the site is completely destroyed, and not even the Jordanians care about it. So the prophecy really did come to fruition. So that line is really speaking to Edom's strength, and yet making this prediction that their strength is going to come to nothing. The other point is I want you to take, as you're reading Obadiah, pay attention to whether he's making a statement that they were actively participating in the destruction of Judah, or if they were passively involved. So keep an eye on that, and I want to see what you think about that. Eventually, Edom does become destroyed. Obviously, they're absorbed into neighboring tribes and conquered themselves. By the time Malachi starts preaching, he's speaking of Edom in past tense. They were all but forgotten by that point. So Obadiah's prophecy does come true. One one last statement is just this general idea of what's really irking Obadiah. I think the idea here is that Edom was supposed to be a brother nation to Israel, or what's left of Israel, which is just Judah now, the southern tribes. But Obadiah, he sees this historical connection between Edom and Judah, and granted, there's no love lost between the two nations. They've been rivals for a very, very long time. But he still says, you know what, even though you're enemies, you were brothers, and you destroyed your brother with participating with the Babylonians, and so you're going to suffer in a very severe way for participating in that. And I think that's really the heart of the message, is even though they are rival nations, Edom was a brother nation to Judah and still participated in their destruction. And so God is very displeased, and Obadiah gives us warning. Not much is going to be left of you by the time God is done. And even though you think you've got these secure locations, you will not be rebuilt. And to this day, the Edomites don't exist. In fact, eventually they become absorbed into Judah in a really kind of weird way. The Edomites you see in the New Testament or Idumeans are the Edomites in the New Testament, and otherwise completely forgotten. Anyway, that's the gist of Obadiah, and I hope that makes sense to you. Enjoy your reading. Get a hold of me if you have any questions. Okay? Thanks.